Let's talk about this. This is an amazing story. It really is. About 50 people were charged in a scheme to buy spots in freshman classes at Yale, Stanford, other big names schools. Basically, they used this consultant guy named William Singer, who had a place called the Edge College and Career Network, but really what it was also known as the Key, and he would funnel money to coaches and to people, proctors at exams, and they would use these things to get their kids into school. And they got tapes of them. They got Singer talking to people. It's tapes of the parents, these elite parents, explaining, these were people with a lot of money, but money wasn't the only thing they cared about. Here's one of the tapes.
Yeah, money's all right, but it ain't everything. Now, be somebody. Look hard at a bunch of guys and know that they'll do anything you tell them. Have your own way or nothing. Be somebody.
Yeah, see? All right. These elegant people, they acted like thugs. They acted like gangsters. Some of them were famous. Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin. Huffman's a good actress. She was in Sex and the City. Big Clinton supporter. And she's married to William Macy from, Fargo and Shameless. He was not indicted, though they did catch him in a phone call talking with Felicity Huffman and this guy Singer, talking about whether they wanted to use this service, this fraudulent service for their younger daughter after they'd used it for their older daughter. They ultimately decided not to. I don't know if that's why they didn't indict Macy too, but he was, obviously aware of what was going on with this stuff. And the other is Loughlin. She's from Full House and Fuller House, and she's married to the fashion designer Massimo Giannulli, who was also indicted. Let's hear the U.S. Attorney from Massachusetts, Andrew Lelling, talking about who these people were. This is cut number 3.
These parents are a catalog of wealth and privilege. They include, for example, CEOs of private and public companies, successful securities and real estate investors, 2 well-known actresses, a famous fashion designer, and the co-chairman of a global law firm. Based on the charges unsealed today, all of them knowingly conspired with Singer and others to help their children either cheat on the SAT or ACT and or buy their children's admission to elite schools through fraud. Singer's clients paid him anywhere between $100,000 and $6.5 million for this service, though the majority paid between $250,000 and $400,000 per student. This case is about the widening corruption of elite college admissions through the steady application of wealth combined with fraud. There can be no separate college admissions system for the wealthy, and I'll add that there will not be a separate criminal justice system either.
So these people are in real trouble. One of my favorite stories from this is Felicity Huffman following Singer's instructions. Felicity Huffman had her daughter seek permission to get extra time on the SAT, which is an option available to students with learning disabilities. So basically pretending her daughter had a learning disability. And once she received the permission, Mr. Singer instructed Ms. Huffman to have her daughter take the test in December of 2017 with a proctor who was in on the scheme. So he was going to help her out. But then it appeared that a different proctor from her daughter's own high school would be involved. And Ms. Huffman emailed Mr. Singer, Rutro, her high school wants to use their own proctor. I mean, they just, the morality here was kind of a little bit missing. The Laura Loughlin, who the other actress, her daughter is like an Instagram star. This is not something I know that much about. Olivia J. Giannulli has over 1 million followers on Instagram, and she got into school pretending she was on crew by taking a phony picture of her with a rowing machine. One of these guys was a Gordon Kaplan, co-chairman at law firm Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, whose daughter was going to college, and he was explaining, Singer was explaining to him how the service works. And Singer said there's a front door, which means you get in on your own. The back door is through institutional advancement, which is 10 times as much money. And I've created this side door. And Kaplan says to him, to be honest, I'm not worried about the moral issue here. I'm worried about if she gets caught doing that, she's finished. If somebody catches this, what happens? Mr. Kaplan asked Mr. Singer, who said that no one would get caught if he kept his mouth shut. Here is Lelling talking about some of the things they did. I mean, it's just amazing, some of the things that they did. Just remember, when you're doing, then it's unclear how many of these kids knew what was going on. It is unclear if the kids themselves knew what was going on, but some of them were posing for pictures. Some of the pictures were Photoshopped. But if they knew, and now that they have found out, I mean, what have these parents taught their kids? What have they taught them? It is an amazing, amazing thing that they would do this. Let's hear Lelling describe some of the scams. This is cut number 5.
To facilitate the scam, Singer counseled parents to take their children to a therapist and get a letter saying that because of purported learning disabilities or other issues, the child needed additional time to complete the ACT or the SAT. Once the companies that administer those exams had agreed to the extra time, Singer arranged for the child to take the exam individually with one of the proctors he had bribed, or one of the administrators he had bribed, either at a location in Houston or a location in California. Beyond the SAT and ACT scam, parents also paid Singer money that he then used to bribe coaches and administrators to designate their children as recruited athletes for various schools. In return for bribes, coaches would use slots that their schools had allocated to them.
So I'll go back. I mean, so you're calling your kid disabled, basically, so they can get more time on the SATs. They're having proctors fix the SAT scores. And, the New York Times, a former newspaper, had article after article saying, don't you think for a minute that this justifies the meritocracy, that we should say, instead of these people being corrupt, we should just take people in on merit, because they want to protect their, affirmative action things, which are also, which also don't work. They let kids into these schools where they can't make it, especially in the sciences. They let them into engineering schools where they're going to fail. It's much better for people who can't make these big schools to go into engineering schools where they can succeed, because you'll get hired if you get through the program, whereas if you drop out, you won't. And if you come out and you're not very good at what you haven't learned anything because you couldn't keep up, then you're just not going to be a very good engineer. These things don't help anybody. Meritocracy, though I have a broad idea of what meritocracy means, it might be harder to fight your way out of a slum school than it is to get through a private school. I can understand that. That's not a problem. But letting people in because their skin is a certain color, because they're a certain sex, those are the kinds of things that I think hurt people just as much as this kind of fraud. I think that it speaks to this idea that the thing itself, getting the thing itself, is what makes it important, instead of what you're going to get out of that thing, that these things have no point, that parenting has no point. I wouldn't tell my kid, if my kid were black, I wouldn't tell him, you got to get in because you're black, we'll use that. I mean, it's ridiculous. Once they set those systems up, of course, parents will use them. You can't blame parents for doing that. But any system that gets in the way of some sort of meritocracy is going to lead to corruption of some sort. It may not be corruption like this, but this is about credentialism and how tough it is to get these credentials and how important they are and how much they raise your pay. I mean, if there were no food, we'd all be fighting, like in Venezuela, because of socialism, we'd all be fighting each other for food. If credentials are hard to come by and they're valuable, then they're going to fight people. People are going to fight over credentials, and they're going to do it any way they can. Let's let Lelling talk a little bit more about some of these athletic scams, because one of the ways they did this was not just cheating on the test, but pretending these kids had athletic abilities that they didn't have. This is cut 6, I guess.
Singer worked with the parents to fabricate impressive athletic profiles for their kids, including fake athletic credentials or honors, or fake participation in elite club teams. In many instances, Singer helped parents take staged photographs of their children engaged in particular sports. Other times, Singer and his associates used stock photos that they pulled off the internet, sometimes photoshopping the face of the child onto the picture of the athlete and submitting it in support of the applications for these children to elite schools. In one example, the head women's soccer coach at Yale, in exchange for $400,000, accepted an applicant as a recruit for the Yale women's team, despite knowing that the applicant did not even play competitive soccer.
It's kind of amazing, sticking the kids' heads. I can see my kid calling him up. How come you didn't do that for me? You didn't stick my head on an athlete's body. It is truly amazing. It is truly amazing. It always gets me. Corruption always gets me when I pause for a minute and just imagine the mindset of the person doing the corruption. I mean, Felicity Huffman, William Macy, these are people who are privileged in more than just an accidental way. These are tremendously talented people, so they're privileged in that way. They're blessed. Let's not call it privilege. They're blessed with talent. And they're blessed with the fact that they succeeded, whether it was the work ethos. Anybody who ever succeeds in the arts, and I have done this, you know there's some luck involved. You know there's timing involved, luck, something comes along. And yes, it's true that the people who really have talent, they do tend to rise over time, but some of them have other problems, like they're not appealing, they're not attractive, they're not there at the right time, in the right place. You know, these are really lucky people. And what was it? What was going through their minds when they thought, oh yeah, we'll fake this thing? And obviously these credentials have become too important. Before getting on, I mean, when you think about the big ideas here, and like I said, it's very tempting to like just go after things that you don't like and say that's the big idea. But the one thing you can say that is true of this beyond question is that it certainly these headlines play into the idea that the elites are rigging the system. You know who got this right? Take one guess who said something true about this. Go ahead, one. I dare you. You'll never get it right. Don Lemon hit this on the nose. Here is a quick cut of Don Lemon. This is before he gets off into his own thing and starts saying ridiculous stuff. But here is a moment when like a stopped clock is right twice a day. Here is a moment when Don Lemon hits it right out of the park.
It is shameful. Shameful that this is in America. This is an America that can be deeply unfair, where hard work doesn't necessarily pay off, where if you have money, you can buy anything, because just about everything is for sale, including integrity for sale, where a whole lot of people have real good reason to believe the system is rigged against them. Listen, this is what Donald Trump tapped into. In a lot of ways, guess what? He was right.
I'd like to just play that in his dreams at night. Donald Trump was right. Donald Trump was certainly playing into a perception that people have that the system is rigged. And you know, on the conservative side, you say, well, this means that the elites are, want to take over everything and they want to take, but it works both ways. It works for both the right and the left. And we're turning to these people because the people we trusted to be the elites, the people who said they were the experts, have failed and have shown themselves to be corrupt and have shown themselves not to care about the actual lives of the people going on. This is the bad thing about this. I mean, the individual parenting is unbelievable to me. The individual corruption is gobsmacking. It just makes you blink that people with so much privilege, so much money actually stoop to doing this in front of their kids, to their kids. It's a horrible thing. But more than anything, it shows us an elite class that has lost the plot of what they're supposed to do. Because being an elite, just like being a parent, just like having a job, just like all the things that we do, going to school, being an elite has a point. It has a purpose. If you're not fulfilling that purpose, you're just wasting space.